welcome to this week's college football forecast. I am your head football meteorologist, Bill Carroll, joined, of course, by my junior weatherman, Brock Vieira, directly to that direction. Brock, we just went through a week that I thought would help to clarify certain things. Tell me about some of the things that you think were shifted or changed or solidified by what we just saw in the last week.
The SEC is still the premier conference in college football. When you look at the matches that happened last week, especially with some of the top teams, or even when you look at the past 2 weeks, when you look at some of the top teams of the conference, it really shows that the cream of the crop and everybody else, the gap isn't as big as we want to think it is. Of course, you still have the big dogs in Georgia and Alabama. Let's not act like Alabama was one play away from losing at home in Tuscaloosa to Texas A&M. Of course, Georgia did have their scare against Missouri. I believe that was 2 weeks ago, down in Missouri. And then Tennessee has had some really tough battles so far. They knocked off Florida. They went into the Bayou and had a phenomenal performance against LSU. But at the same time, we never really knew how good Tennessee was until last week, just to clarify how good the SEC is compared to the rest of the nation. With that being said, something you and I touched on in personal conversation, the Pac-12 and the Big 12 in terms of talent and the top of the conferences aren't as far away from being national championship contenders as we have maybe previously thought of. Of course, they haven't taken on the SEC competition yet, besides Oregon, but they have shown some things that really excite the palate. Something I really just want to say is this is going to be a separation Saturday when we finally get some clarity on who are the top dogs in college football. For a long time, you, myself, and some of the other great members at MBS have been on the committee of we put out our weekly top 10 in college football. And for the most part, we haven't been able to really move some of the teams that we like, at least personally, into the top 10 because some of the teams that have already been there via preseason polls have basically coasted through the season so far. You got teams like UCLA, teams like TCU. You can even throw in James Madison at this point. I'm not saying they're a top 10 team, but their record does deserve some respect. And since some of those top 10 teams haven't lost yet, we haven't been able to slide those guys up. Big matchups this week. We got Penn State, Michigan, and we got Tennessee, Alabama. And hopefully with those games, we can finally start to put together a clearer picture of the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited about this week. This week, I'm going to have to get as much rest as I can, obviously, today, because I will get none tomorrow. I will be awake pretty much the entire day tomorrow. And my big love is looking at what teams do on defense to try to deal with. There's so much talent on offense in all of these conferences. And as we discussed, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 particularly have tremendous talent at receiver, quarterback, and even some tight ends, though not quite as deep as the other two positions. And what it takes to try to defend the talent with the rule changes that accompany them, I mean, it really does push you as a coach, as a coaching staff, to do your very, very, very best work, because you're going to, I mean, it would have been unthinkable for some of these teams to give up, 50 points, 40 points in the old days. And now every week you're seeing even a good, quote unquote, good defense. If they escape against a good offense, giving up 31 points, it's like, yeah, well done, So that's something that's really changed for me. And then there's an SEC, along with the SEC, in the HBCU land, there's a couple of big time showdowns we'll get to later that I want to make sure that I throw some love their way as well. This is also sort of when I start taking seriously my prospect evaluation, right? Because very few weeks you're sort of watching football to watch football. And then I'm now rewatching games I've already watched. I watched them before to see who won and stuff like that. Now I'm watching particular prospects. And my first piece I'm going to write amongst the sort of Scouts Eye View series I'm going to do, and I'm going to invite you to join me on some of those as well and write some, will be on the corner class, and a bunch of the, usual suspect top corners are going to be featured this week as well. So that's the other sort of extra nugget for me, as I'm, Joey Porter Jr. and I mean, a bunch of the top corners in this class are going to be facing good challenges in terms of what they're going to have to deal with. So let's get into our first game. Tell me what game excites you the most. And there's a lot to choose from, but which one are you looking forward to the most?
So maybe this game doesn't excite me the most, but I'm very excited about it due to my deep festering hatred to how this program is run, and that is Iowa going down to going up actually to Ohio to play Ohio State and the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes. Iowa can be a national contender every single season if Kirk Ferentz fires his son. There's no other way to put it. His son Brian is straight nepotism, and it's detrimental to the program. Phil Parker and that defense every single season, even if they don't have the talent scheme wise, they always show up to play. That's why they made the Big Ten championship game last season. Offensively, they don't put up remotely enough points to compete at a Division I football level. I remember seeing a commercial for the Big Ten, and it had all the coaches lined up, and they asked all of them, what's the least important stat in college football? And you know what Kirk Ferentz said? Offensive yardage. That in itself should really display how offensively behind they are mentally. They've never had a really good quarterback since probably Brian Banks. I'm sure people are gonna say, "Oh, what about Ricky Stanzi? What about C.J. Beathard? All those guys," but those weren't NFL quality quarterbacks. I'm not saying Brian Banks was, but he did finish, I think, runner up to the Heisman at one point, and he did give Iowa a lot of versatility on offense. He could pass, he could run, and when you have a run-based offense like they have with good tight ends and really strong offensive linemen, you can do some really good things. They haven't had that since. They have a couple good tight ends on the roster right now, but their offense, if they put up more than 14 points a game, you want to throw a parade for them. It's just really shocking to see how a program that can bring in so much talent in a place like Iowa that doesn't have the big NIL markets, doesn't have the big TV deals all the time. They don't have the spotlight on them compared to other teams in the Big Ten, like the Michigans, Ohio State. Continuously bring in so much talent and continuously fail to nurture that talent and to be a successful product on the field, but somehow nurture them enough to be excellent talents in the NFL. It's truly perplexing, to say the least. And I'm looking forward to see Ohio State roll over Iowa. And hopefully this is the wake-up call for the administration to force Ferentz to make a move on his son.
So your love for firing coaches is now grown to actually dividing families. When you have to curl up every night next to the mother of a coach on your staff you're going to have to fire, that adds a certain extra spice to that conversation you have to have.
You know what you do? You go down to the mall. You go and you take your millions of dollars you make every single season as being a vested employee of Iowa, and then you go buy her a purse, and it's all better. Okay. And let's not act like for little Ferentz hasn't been cashing in $1 million checks every single season to be poor.
I'm sure they'll be okay financially. I'm more thinking of like an emotional kind of investment here. But
if you talk to Iowa Hawkeyes fans, they go through emotional trauma every Saturday. I think we've all suffered enough watching that offense. I mean, let's not forget they were ranked number 2 in the nation last year.
I do remember it.
Yeah. And you know what happened? Brian Ferentz.
So yet another coach will not be sending a fruit basket to Brock Vieira. Okay, so I agree with some of your points. I don't think he's going to fire his son. I do think he may reapportion some of the duties. I would not be shocked if his son got reclassified as a run game coordinator and they brought in someone perhaps from the outside as a passing game coordinator. And if they want to do that, I have some names I could suggest to them. But yeah.
And name number 1 is probably Robert Anae when he comes to.
Well, I mean, Robert Anae should be the offensive coordinator. I wouldn't just make him a pass game coordinator. Yeah. I'm thinking of maybe a younger coach that for whom it would be still sort of a step up. But that's a whole other segment that I will dream up where we will have a fix a staff segment where we look at a coaching staff and fix them. We will change out maybe members of the staff with guys on other staffs, or even just give guys different duties. But that's
the scene in Casino where the county commissioner tells De Niro, "Can you find a spot for my son-in-law a little more down the trough?" Right? That's what we need for Brian
Right.
Ferentz. Like,
Further down the trough.
Go be mealtime coordinator.
Well, now in his defense, he was a very fine offensive line coach. He did a good job of in the tradition of, they've had a bunch of good offensive line coaches because Ferentz himself obviously was a very good, the father. Kirk was a very good offensive line coach for many years before he became a coordinator and then eventually a head coach.
Yes.
And I think he's hoping with the same thing for his son. And I'm just spitballing here. I've never had a conversation with Mr. Ferentz, but I'm guessing he's hoping to line his son up to eventually be a successor. I'm with you in thinking that is probably unwise. Yeah. And while I'm not calling for the firing, I do agree that his son, to be such a young man, has a very old soul when it comes to coaching offense.
Yeah, let's not forget that Kirk was the former offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens.
Correct.
Like, this is not a guy that just got his job through, just being around. Like, this dude has been an offensive coordinator in the NFL. And the offenses they put up, just in general, are depressing. And I'm not trying to throw more shade, but when you look at Illinois right now, whose head coach is the former offensive line coach, and the amount they're producing, as they are a run dominant offense, no doubt, behind Mr. Brown. But you see what they've done in what Bielema's second year in charge, and then you look at a guy that's been there for 5-6 years already in Little Ferentz. It's disappointing to see how much better Iowa could be, especially when you look at the top running backs that have come out of the Big Ten the past couple of years that are there right now. You got guys like Travion Henderson. You got guys like Kenneth Walker last year. You got Corum out at Michigan. You got obviously Mr. Brown down at Illinois. Maryland's got some dudes, but and then you take a look and you look at what Iowa has had and then have nothing against Tyler Goodson, but you never thought that he was one of the top running backs in the nation. You never thought that he was even one of the top 3 running backs in his own conference, maybe top 5, but definitely not top 3. Well, what can you say after that? Your stadium's literally named after a running back, and you haven't been able to produce a high-level running back in a long, long time. You really got to go good hard look at yourself. On the flip side, Ohio State, they're balling. Like right now, there's nothing that you can say that can really derail them until at least later on next month. Who is gonna stop them? At least in the Big Ten, I don't know, but I know for sure it's probably not gonna be the Iowa Hawkeyes.
I'm inclined largely to agree with you, and I think Ohio State is just waiting for one of those SEC schools to knock off the other SEC school and move up another notch. They'll probably be stuck at number 2 for a while behind, the top, whoever the number 1 SEC school is. And what they'll need is for all the SEC schools to have a loss. And then they have a chance to be number 1 in the country. Because I agree with you. I don't think they pick up a loss in the Big Ten. Yeah, I think they're going to run the table in the Big Ten. They don't really have any real weaknesses. I will say this. Their pass rush isn't what it has been of late, right? Where you would have, somebody who's going to go in the top 10 to 15 picks of the next draft. And you say, oh my God, that guy's a monster. They don't have that guy, right? I haven't seen. I haven't seen that. Maybe, we have still half a season to go. Maybe that guy emerges, but he hasn't to this point.
Yeah, not yet.
So I will say that much. That's the one real difference I've seen between this team and some of the recent teams. They don't have that game plan focus pass rusher. The guy that you spent a bunch of time game planning for hasn't yet emerged. But their secondary is solid. Their linebacking core is, as Josh Keatley laid down for us, has at least 2 guys, including, as you remember, Chip Trayanum, who I thought was a fascinating thing. A guy who I thought could at least be a committee back in the NFL. Goes not only transfers, not only grad transfers, but then switches positions. And he didn't switch to a position where he's going to take fewer hits. So that's an interesting transition that Chip Trayanum made. And I think there's NFL teams that will still want to see him as a running back. His pre-draft process will be fascinating. I want to see how that turns out. But let's get deeper into our next game on the menu. Which one do you want to jump to next?
Let's go to the big SEC matchup: Alabama, Tennessee.
Um, who do you think is going to have the greatest impact on the outcome of that game?
Oh, that's a good question. And to me, it's got to be Will Anderson. Um, of course, we know Bryce Young is still dealing with the injury, and Tennessee's been balling with Hendon Hooker. But you look at how Tennessee's offense is made, and the reason they're so effective is because the ball gets out quick. And when the ball gets out quick, you need to have a guy that gets to the quarterback quick, and therefore you got to go with the best pass rusher in the nation, in Will Anderson. If he can wreck Hendon Hooker, and if he can put pressure on him, Hooker is not that great of a quarterback when he's under pressure. Like any other quarterback, they're not going to be a great quarterback when they're under pressure. But when you have an offense that requires the timing routes that they do, if he can have some sort of disruption, it can really throw Tennessee off. And the only way Tennessee is able to win this game is if they stay ahead of the chains. If he can consistently put them behind the chains for maybe 2-3 drives straight, you're going to win the football game. That's just the way Alabama's set up with the talent that they have. So to me, Will Anderson, it's all going to come down to what he can do.
Yeah, I think all of draft Twitter or whatever term you want to use, all the draft people have him at number one. I can't, it's been a while. I remember when everybody agreed on. I mean, at some point, I'm sure just for people trying to generate clicks, somebody will say, my new top whatever, and Will Anderson isn't number one to try to generate some clicks, but I think everybody has Will Anderson as the number one prospect in this class so far. And barring an injury or somebody going nuts, which can happen, right?
Yes.
It happens sometimes. I think he has a chance to go wire to wire, which doesn't happen that often. Usually at some point there's some movement, but Will Anderson looks like he'll be tough to overtake. I'll put it that way. I'm going to say Hendon Hooker for my person. Alan Hendon Hooker is, of course, the son of Alan Hooker, who was a tremendous college quarterback. And I got to watch him when he was a player, which makes me feel very, very old. But like his father, he is an accurate passer with a strong arm. Unlike his father, he's, being seen by the entire nation, starts his career at Virginia Tech, and I think very wisely transferred and finds himself in the situation helped him, but he also helped the situation. He gained ground, right? Because there are other quarterbacks, including Harrison Bailey. I mean, some guys with some name recognition ahead of him, and he overcame them all. And so for Alan Hooker's baby boy, NCAA legend, shout out to NCAA football, he's got an opportunity to push himself into the first round if he continues to. First of all, he's completing passes at an incredible rate. Now, some of that is his
alarmingly good
at an alarming rate. But some of that's his receiving core. He has a heck of a great group of receivers. He's got a couple of guys who I think are going to play on Sundays. Cedric Tillman is special. And the other guy, whose name is escaping me for the moment, is really good too. I like the receiving group as a whole.
Yeah.
The challenge will be on defense. Even without Bryce Young, there's a lot of guys who can hurt you. And even, Jalen Milroe, though he's not a terribly refined passer, can give you some trouble. He passes well enough, but his ability, and Bryce Young can move around, but he's not an aggressive downhill runner. Jalen Milroe doesn't mind contact. He makes you prepare differently, right? He makes you prepare differently. Even beyond Hurts. And Hurts was a very good competitive runner, but this kid, Milroe, is a freak athlete. I don't know if he made Feldman's freak list, but he certainly could have. He holds all of the weight room records for quarterbacks at Alabama. And that's a school where they take a certain amount of pride in their weight strength and conditioning program. He is a monster. So to me, the number is 60%. If Milroe is completing his passes at 60%, that means you can't just load the box. And if that happens, I think Alabama wins the game. It is a sexy, dark horse, fun pick to pick Tennessee. And a lot of people, smart people that I know even are picking Tennessee, especially, like I said, with Bryce Young out. I just have a feeling that they'll just slow the game. Once again, how did Alabama used to win, right? They have to stop winning the way they've been winning the last few years and go back to the way they were winning 10 or 15 years ago.
Run
where
the football.
Right, where they'll slow
power run the football.
Right, they're going to slow it down. They're going to, ugly it up a little. And I mean ugly by dirty or anything, but just ugly it up as in try to slow the other team's offense down and literally slow the game down. Right, bring down the number of possessions, hold the ball. They have enough talent. Still, even without him, and by him I mean Bryce Young, that they can still be problematic. They can be trouble. And they have a guy out there who, like I said, is an absolute beast. He's a Katy, Texas native, which has given us both the Rocket, Roger Clemens, and also the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. Like so many, Texas quarterbacks, he played against a lot of really good players, guys who, there's a lot going on in that part of the country. And to some extent, when you simplify certain things for your backup quarterback, when you slow certain things down, right? I mean, a guy with a 335-pound power clean a while back, like that I'm sure that number has gone up since it was posted, is a guy that, like I said, isn't afraid of mixing it up. So I think you're going to see more called QB run. I think you're going to see they're going to take some deep shots off play action because he doesn't lack for arm strength. He may not be as refined at reading defenses. What Tennessee would like to do is make him throw the ball, right? and then knowing that he hasn't seen as many things in terms of coverages, get their hands on a couple of those. And if they can do that, I think the number once again is 2 interceptions and then maybe some other kind of turnover means Tennessee wins, assuming they don't turn the ball over. Now, if the turnover margin is so 2, they need to be +2, is what I'm saying, at turnover margin. So, however they get to that, if they force 5 and even if they give up 3, I guess they can still do it, but I wouldn't recommend it that way. What are some of the things that you think you're going to look for as sort of keys to victory in this game?
It's really just going to be the effectiveness of Tennessee moving the football. For them, it's all about timing. It's all about getting the ball out quick, and it's all about doing what the defense thinks you're not going to do. When defense thinks you're going to pass, you run. When they think you're going to run, you pass. And they're very effective at mixing in passing or play action, RPOs, straight up runs to really give the defense a whole bunch of looks that all look similar and can all break out different things. Are they going to be successful at that? Are they going to be successful at that? That's the big thing for Alabama. It's about moving the quarterback around. You hit it on the head perfectly. This is not Bryce Young. This is not a guy that when Bryce Young, when it's clutch time, he clutches up and he gets it done. The only reason they lost the national championship game is because their top 2 receivers went down and Ajayi Hall played like trash. Had Jameson Williams and John Mechie, or even just one of those guys been in the game, I still think Alabama was a football game. And that's against an all-time defense, right? We don't have that clutch factor on the field anymore. So if Tennessee can have the lead late, that will be very crucial for them to know that they don't have that absolute stud on the other side, unproven stud for Alabama. For Alabama, to me, you want to go with an offense that's based off if-then concepts, which is a lot of RPOs, a lot of play actions, and a lot of levels passing concepts. If this guy's covered, you go this way. If this guy's covered, you hit this guy. If this guy's covered, you throw it out of bounds. What you really want to do, I hate to say it, is you want to take the thinky aspect of the game out of the quarterback's mind very early because he doesn't have the reps in order to do that yet. You want to do a lot of if-then, so therefore he can operate at a high level and gain some confidence and he can open it up as the game goes on. As long as the offensive coordinators understand the personnel that they have and don't start doing horrible things based off the competition, both teams should be in a very good position to succeed. Personally, I had Alabama winning this one. Until somebody knocks Saban off the top of the castle, I will not go against him, even though they got very close last week. And Josh Heupel with his Tennessee program hasn't really been in this position before yet, right? To where they're competing for a national championship, they're competing for the SEC, they're competing for something for a really high mark. I just don't think they have the guys to accomplish it yet, but they are in a good position. Also, shout out to Hendon Hooker. We really don't talk about his journey. Of course, he came from Virginia Tech, but when he first came to Tennessee, he was QB2, QB3 with Harrison Bailey. Joe Milton was incumbent QB number one, and for him to step in how he did and to ball the way he is, he deserves his flowers. I said it for a long time. Hendon Hooker is what people think Will Levis is, and he does deserve his opportunity to play on Sundays. He has been absolutely balling. I don't have his statistics in front of me, but I think he hasn't thrown a single interception this season or something like that.
That's correct.
Yeah, in two big games against not Georgia, against Florida and against LSU, he's played virtually flawless. And especially at LSU, it's not a tough environment to play in. And when all eyes on you on third Saturday in September, he absolutely rose to the occasion. Just great shot to him. And Cedric Tillman hasn't been healthy either, so he hasn't had his true wide receiver one as well. I love Hendon Hooker. I do hope he does have a really good game.
Yeah, this is going to be, obviously the biggest moment of his college football career to this point, and his numbers are. I mean, we'll get to our halfway point Heisman talk in a moment, but I mean, 70% completion percentage, right? 1,432 yards in 5 games. So if you extrapolate that out to 12 games, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 33, probably 100 plus yards passing. He's 10.2 yards per attempt with an adjusted, right? Once you take away things like, balls that were thrown away intentionally and stuff like that, adjust up to 11.7 yards per pass attempt, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's having a crazy year. And whoever people like Max Duggan or whatever, have also having insane years. He would be a guy that and Bijan, I guess, maybe still in the mix, but probably not. So it looks like it's back to being a quarterback award. And hey, maybe my boy Sean Tucker, who was my dark horse guy, to at least be a finalist. I didn't predict winning it, but I predicted in the preseason I thought Tucker had a chance to be at least a Heisman Trophy finalist. And if Syracuse keeps winning, I guess he has his chance.
Why not?
So I'm going to throw something up here in a second, and we'll see if it works. We'll see if it works. But I'm going to try talking a little bit about since you had previously sort of introduced the idea of doing some, some visual aids. I'm going to try some things. So let's see if these things work. I'm going to toss them up here and see if it happens. And then we'll talk about how Alabama is going to approach Hooker and how Hooker could then probably approach Alabama. And we'll talk each about sort of how that can work, should work, could work. So Alabama is going to run multiple coverages because they have a very smart group of people. It's not really news, is it, Bill? But they do. They have a very smart plan for how they attack things, how they attack offenses, even really good offenses. And you have to adjust to their adjustments because they're constantly readjusting. And I want to talk about some of both their schema and the terminology. So terms that everyone already knows about are things like, nickel, dime, alley defender. Well, maybe not everybody knows that term, but I'm going to just walk through a few things. A term that Alabama uses is the term apex, right? Which is such a cool term. And it simply is the way they define or describe the first underneath defender who's inside the corner. So that could be a nickel or it could be a linebacker. Could be a safety that is inverted. And when I say inverted, that means when the safety is, instead of being deeper than the corner, is now playing in front of the corner. And that apex is in their pass responsibility is responsible for the number 2 receiver, the second eligible receiver. Could be a tight end, could be a wide receiver, working from the outside in. And they use the term apex to differentiate that it's not a designated position, but a designated role, meaning that it could be many different kinds of players, right? And then sometimes it could be a person who's a money backer or a star, linebacker, safety, corner, or, nickel. And so that person also can be an alley defender, right? But the alley refers to your run responsibility. Apex refers to pass responsibility. And so the other person that, like I said, the more familiar term probably to most people is star. And that's simply a nickel player who's replacing the Sam and then aligns over the slot receiver. If there's two slots, then the star aligns to the one who's on the field side. And, field meaning, in college football, the hash marks are narrower, so you get more space, basically. And so you have a boundary player is a player that is playing on the narrower, the side doesn't have as much space. And then the field side is where there's more field, right? I guess simplify things. And so that's the side to which they're playing. And so since they're replacing the Sam, the term star is to sort of make sure that you remember you're replacing the Sam, same letter of the alphabet, it starts with S. The money in Saban's system is a dime player who takes the other linebacker spot. So the money backer aligns in the linebacker spot to the number 4, which in a 3x1, it's to the tight end. In a 2x2, then it's the boundary slot receiver if they're in dual slots. That means that unlike most linebacker roles, which tend to send the mic to the strength of the defense, the money backer rotates from the strong to the weak side, wherever the number 4 is aligned. The last thing I'm going to throw out there, and I didn't mean to go too deep into this, is the hook, right? Now, we all know about the term, if you ever played Madden or whatever, hook, curl, flat. But the hook is the second underneath defender inside the cornerback. Usually a linebacker, but once again, could be a money backer or even an inverted safety who's playing in the box. Again, the point is that hook player is a player that will have a run-first responsibility, but if there is a running back who's leaking out, whether it be a Texas route, whether it be an angle route, whether it be, heaven forfend a wheel route, they've got to go get that guy. So I'm going to try something I've never done before, but I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to try using a visual aid, which you seem to have managed to do successfully. And since I cannot draw worth a lick, I'm going to try capturing an image and then posting it as an overlay. And if that works, then I'll know I can do it in the future. If it doesn't, then I'll know I cannot do it in the future. So yeah, that'll be an important thing I'm learning. So while I'm working on that, tell me about some of the things that you're going to do. So if you are you're in those meeting rooms, right? You are meeting with Coach Heupel, who is his own play caller, but does still have his, what's the word I'm looking for? Counselors, his group, his
advisors.
Yeah, advisors, his guys, his offensive brain trust. That was the term I was looking for. His offensive brain trust. In those meetings, right, you're going to be looking at ways in which you can exploit a really good defense, right? You're not exploiting a weak defense. You're exploiting a really good defense. And amongst the things that Heupel has had success with, as you know, is not just going up tempo, but varying tempo. And his coordinator is someone that isn't discussed very often because everyone knows Heupel as an offensive mind. His name is Alex Golesh, and he's the tight ends coach, but also the OC. Came with him from UCF. He hired him back at UCF as his co-defensive coordinator the year before he came over from UCF to Tennessee. The Knights had a terrific offense. So last year they were there together. In 2020, they averaged 42 points a game. Golesh was also, when he was at Iowa State, a recruiting coordinator and tight ends coach at Iowa State. So he's been at Toledo in the past and also at University of Illinois. And so though Heupel still retains play calling duties, the group around him, and I mentioned Golesh, he also has, an offensive analyst named Alex I guess it's pronounced Ebeln. Not sure of the pronunciation there, but I think it's Ebeln, Abeln, and a former offensive lineman himself. And though they don't have a named run game coordinator, I believe that he's a person that's contributed, I think, has contributed to some of the success they've had in the run game, particularly in their RPO game and things like that. And then once again, their wide receivers coach. And once again, they don't have a named passing game coordinator, but I believe they have people who I believe in my own little mind, based on nothing my own watching, which is Kelsey Pope. I think they all sort of contribute to helping. And one other guy I want to mention, and once again, another feel old moment for me, Joey Hazel, who I remember as being a guy who was involved in the a quarterback battle in at Oklahoma back in the day, is their quarterbacks coach. But I think Pope is probably the one that has more of Heupel's ear on the running of the creation and running of the pass game. And though he's fairly new, he came there after being an offensive analyst. Also, he took over for Cody Burns, who moved on to the New Orleans Saints staff. Cedric Tillman mentioned him by name, even though they've only worked together for a fairly short amount of time because he's only been there since March of 22, but named him by name, mentioned Kelsey Pope by name as part of why he's, to use your term, balling so wildly out of control. So while I work on we'll see if this works, a graphics package for the show, tell me about how you would attack Alabama's defense.
So you went on a phenomenal defensive spiel on how Alabama sits with defense. So I decided to come in and blow it up by going 5 wide to start the game. And why I want to do that is, one, you're going to be able to establish where the defense is going to be aligned and then take advantage of it. In college football, what a lot of coaches do is they send out their formation, and then upon seeing the defensive coverage, they call their plays. And essentially, that's what I'm doing as well. You want to run man, I'm running quarterback draw. You want to run press coverage, we're going to run quick inside slants. You want to back off, we're going to run wide receiver screens. And we're not just going to do it how we normally do it. We're going to design it in crazy ways. We're going to run motions. We're going to put 4 dudes on one side of the field. And then run completely to the other side. Like, we're going to change it up in so many different ways that's going to make you go, what in the heck are we doing? We're going to motion in the receiver to play running back. Like, we're going to start out at our 5 wide and then go into either our play or then our next formation. And the reason why we're going to do that is so we can establish who has what responsibility. Essentially, like, who's lined up on the tight end, who has the flat, are they running 2 high safety or one single high safety? Where's the apex? Is the apex going to be coming down the blitz? Is the apex going to be in coverage? What are we dealing with here? And then upon seeing that, we can jump into our regular formations and then go and attack them. Alongside the fact is, Heupel them, they run that no-huddle offense. So by going to 5 wide, upon the next play, you can easily go into another formation and run the play in general quickness. Right? They have a really physically gifted wide receiver in Brew McCoy, a highly touted prospect for a long, long time, and he's finally seemed to find a home in Tennessee. I'm getting that guy looks early. I want Alabama to learn that this is going to be a physical game, and that you better strap your chin strap. I want to make them understand that this is not going to be a walk in the park. This is not the same old Tennessee. This is going to be a hard-hitting Tennessee that's going to come at you hard. It's going to come at you fast, and they're going to keep on coming until you decide that you're going to stop us. And that's how I'm going to attack the Alabama defense.
Okay. I'm going to throw, I think, the first of a few coverages up there, and drum roll, please. Let's see if I can get that sucker to work. Okay, here we go. So this I'm going to open with is, okay, here we go. And action. Okay, so there we go. So one of the things that we're going to do, what you're seeing there is some late safety rotation, because don't the kids love late safety rotation? And so what we're going to do here is we're going to present what looks like initially cover 2.
Yes.
And even run a fair amount of 2-man at times, but not too much, because Hendon Hooker can hurt you with his feet. And then late, the A is apex, is going to come over here as this free safety joins us down in the box. Now, what he can do in this situation is continue to come, and he may be spying the quarterback. He can just come as a blitzer. But mostly he's going to be trying to take away a lot of stuff that happens in this area of the field. Crossers, right? This is around this depth is where most teams run their crossing routes, and that means that your your strong safety has to be one, a good athlete, and luckily for Alabama, their strong safety is a good athlete. Two, has to be smart. We'll find out how smart today, or not today, but tomorrow. So when this happens, you have to time it up right. We've seen a lot of times, and most famously, of course, the Demaryius Thomas from Timothy Dwight Tebow wild card playoff game win over the Steelers when Troy Polamalu, as we all remember, pulled a little late safety rotation, and Ryan Clark wasn't able to get there in time. So you have to time it right, because you can give up a lot of big plays if you don't time this right. So I'm going to drop that down. And when that happens, how is Tennessee going to deal with that when they do that late safety rotation?
To me, even if they come out of formation of that nature, you got to run the football. If you don't mind putting the graphic back up, so I can kind of explain what I would.
It's coming back.
Perfect. So essentially, what you're gonna do is you're gonna run the ball to the strong side of the field, or the left hand side of the field. What you're gonna do is you're gonna run slant. You're gonna slant all your linemen. Basically, you're gonna expose the end. If that's Will Anderson, that's a challenge because he has the ability to get there before you can even set up your blocks. But essentially, you're just gonna slant it. Your tight end and your left tackle are gonna double to your end, and then the left tackle is gonna break off into the linebacker or the free safety, who's ever in the occupied space. Then with the left guard in the center, you're gonna double to the tackle. Then you're gonna have your right guard kind of shield the nose, and then you have your right guard shield the nose, and then you have your right tackle kind of do the same thing. Maybe just kind of get in the way of the end, and then essentially after he does that, he's gonna shoot up into the secondary. And then basically, you got to take running back, and you got to just run alongside the hole and try and find the gap between the tackle and the end. That left tackle right there is going to be the crucial element in order to kind of settle that gap. Because if that tackle is able to get leverage and get inside and get that hole, that running back is either going to kick it to the hole made between the guard and the left guard and the center, or he's going to be able to run through the hole being made by the right tackle and the tight end. Either way, doesn't really matter to me. You're going to have an easy 5-6 yard gain if you're able to execute that properly. And what that's going to do is when you run the no huddle, that's going to open up the RPO. So if you don't mind putting that back up, Bill.
I will. Here we go.
You're gonna run the same blocking scheme, but instead of the left tackle breaking off, it's going to be the tight end breaking off, and he's just going to go straight downfield and try to find that gap in between the free safety and the strong safety, and then Hendon Hooker can hit him right there. Alongside the fact, you can have your inside slot receiver. You have your slot receiver kind of run like this inside drag route, essentially, and force the defenders to come up to kind of give you that gap to hit the tight end deep. So you can do a bunch of different looks at that, and that really takes a bunch of the other defenders out of the play. And really, you're keying in on the linebackers. You want to make them hesitate. You want to make them think to themselves, I don't know what's happening, and with those same looks. And then if that works, and we go up to our third play, easy. We're going to run the same blocking scheme, but guess what? Instead of a full run, we're going to run read option. But we're going to throw a little twist in there. When you run the read option set up, on this end on the weak side is the one we're going to expose. If the quarterback pulls it, we're also going to set up a screen with the slot and outside receiver. So essentially, the slot is going to be the blocker, and then the other wide receiver is going to be the catcher. So when Hendon Hooker rolls out, he has the option to pass it, or he can run, depending on what the gaps is. So basically, you want to confuse them with so many different looks based off that run and based off the same offensive blocking scheme. Right, so if we want to make sure the offensive line stays the same the entire time, and then that's how we disguise our entire offense, and that's how we would attack a defense like this.
Yeah, and I'll throw another couple of things at you, and then we'll take a quick break. But I want to hit a couple more things because you're doing a great job. Okay, so another thing you're going to see, they run a lot of different coverages. Cover 6, which is all called quarter half. You're going to see obviously. Pattern match cover 3. You're going to see various versions of quarters coverage, what they call palms coverage. They have they probably run as many different coverage packages. No, not as many. They run more coverage packages than anybody else in all of college football. And so one of the things that some of these things are things that you'll probably only see them run in all of college football. Some of the things they do, no one else does. And so the reason that Cover 7 is becoming more prevalent, more popular recently, relatively recently, is because, and once again, Nick Saban is his father in essence. So nobody certainly is better at it. And essentially what we're talking about, because it can be somewhat complicated, to be perfectly honest, and I don't have time to really teach the entire system. That would be a whole other show. But you're talking about looking at split fields, right? You're basically looking at treating one side of the field completely differently from another side of the field. You're going to have 4 players that essentially just have a primary commitment to run. The weak side linebacker is going to line up in the traditional strong side position, right? The SAM position. So if there's a tight end of the field, the money backer will line up on the same side of the field as the tight end instead of the opposite side. The strong side in this case with the extra wide receiver in a 3-by-1 set will be there rather than the tight end. And the other defenders will be in their traditional places, where normal, whatever term you want to use. And then main outside deep, MOD. And that's so mod or MOD coverage scheme means that the cornerback has man coverage on the one receiver if he runs deep or outside routes. The number one, if he ends up running a route that's shorter than 5 yards, the cornerback will mix an under or a smash call. You'll sometimes see the guy go like punching into his palm or things like that. That's a smash or a coverage call, under or smash coverage call. And that alerts the star or the nickel, who sometimes is the same person, but isn't always the same person. Oh boy, it's getting interesting. That they're covering the one. The cornerback then slides back into zone for a deep quarter, looking towards the number 2 defender who could be running a route to the outside deep corner. The safety on that side of the field in that instance then would cover if they run a deeper route, and they would then keep inside leverage. And you can also bracket out of that, but I will not go on a whole diatribe about that. So tell me about ways in which you would attack that, and then I'll put it back up in a second. Some of the things you want to do if somebody's running, some of the combination coverages that really nobody else runs but Alabama.
Gotcha. So again, you really want to attack Alabama from the ground, and this formation, I'm running the ball halfback stretch to the weak side. Basically, and that's gonna set up a bunch of things. So we're gonna it's all gonna be gap assignments. So basically, I'm willing to bet all the money that I have that if the J, right, and that is Will Anderson, that he's not gonna be able to handle a double team. So basically, how we're gonna do it is we're gonna double at first the end rusher on the weak side. So this is a classic 4-3 formation. Classic 3-4 formation, right? You got your 3 down linemen and then your 4 linebackers, and you got 2 outside linebackers, 2 inside linebackers. We're gonna run it to the outside. We're gonna have this fullback kind of be the lead blocker, and we're just gonna kind of take the ball out there. We're gonna double the end with the left tackle and the left guard, but it's really a quick double because essentially the left tackle is just gonna whack the end and then pull off. And what we're going to try and do is either the left tackle is going to go out and try to take the outside linebacker with the fullback. The fullback's going to try and cut into the end. And basically, we're going to design so many different blocking schemes in order to give the running back a variety of options when it comes to trying to find the hole. Then, after that, we're going to run play action doing the same exact thing. But the fullback, instead of blocking, is going to break off, and he's going to run deep while we swing the ball to the other side of the field. So Hendon Hooker has a big arm. So when he rolls out to his right, he's going to look left, and hopefully they're going to bite on the fact that the linebacker was blocking. And when he runs his route, he's going to have a fairly open he's going to be open. There's a play last year, I believe it was Chargers versus Raiders, where they did this exact same play with Steven Anderson. It was the first time they played. Look it up. Anderson was like open 30 yards downfield. So check that out. And then the last thing we're going to do is essentially the same thing with that halfback stretch, but it's a play action. The fullback and we might even run this play before the previous one. The fullback and the running back are going to be blockers, and we're going to roll out to the right. And essentially, the tight end is going to run this kind of funky drag route to the weak side and then cut it upfield. The X is going to run across the kind of this rainbow route, and the Z is going to run a straight. What that's essentially going to do is that's going to make the Mike linebacker either hesitate and go back to where you're going to have an easy running lane, or it's going to make him come up where you're going to be able to hit the X fairly easy on that route. So whatever you want to do, you want to make sure you have plays that make the defenders hesitate and then also make them lose their gap assignments, make them be aggressive, make them go after Hendon Hooker because he's such a phenomenal runner of the football, and use that to be able to open up the passing game. We talked about last night, at least in my social circle, about Justin Fields. And Ryan Fitzpatrick said something that's kind of highly controversial. And that is Justin Fields is not a phenomenal passer of the football in the pocket, right? And you got to be able to – you should have a moving pocket and roll him out in order to create better opportunities for him. That's the same thing for Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker has the benefit because he's taller, so he can be a pocket passer. But at the same time, when you have a defense like this Alabama defense, you want to make sure that he's constantly moving with the football. So if the play is dead, he can just throw it away. And that's the exact thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we get him out to make the defenders react more, make them aggressive, make them go after him and open it up downfield. Or if they want to stay back and they want to stay conservative, if they want to stay disciplined, we go out and we go pick up 4 or 5 yards on the ground. Either way, we go back to that philosophy of keeping the chains moving and not staying behind the chains, and therefore have continued offensive success.
We have one more graphic. I'll see if it works. Yes.
Ooh.
Okay. So, so once again, because it's a combination coverage, it is built to react to certain things. And so some of the guys are going to be playing zone and some are playing man-to-man based on what the receivers end up doing. And as you can see there, the free safety is playing either the running back or the first wide receiver that crosses to his side. The deep third defender is playing zone and once again, getting depth automatically at the snap of the ball. The star is inside of the number one, inside leverage on the number one receiver. Your deep third defender, which you can't see my finger, but it's going to be going once again, getting deeper than the deepest. And then both your Mike and your star are taking their routes there. Now, this is built in such a way that they should be able to keep eyes on an athletic quarterback because some of the guys are indeed playing zones. They won't lose sight of the quarterback. While you should have someone who is close enough, to take away a lot of the short routes to the receivers that are likely to run short routes while the guys are going to be running deep, there should be enough coverage to take away, what they're trying to do in the land of depth. So I'm going to have you sort of talk about when you are seeing combination coverages. And, even though he's more experienced now than he was previously, there's no way he's seen a lot of the stuff that Alabama can throw at you. What things do you do with a younger quarterback, a quarterback who's, still in his first 15, 16 starts, something like that? I think he had about 4 starts at Virginia Tech, and then he had so it's maybe a 17 or 18 start, maybe. But to help him when that information overload starts to hit you, because Saban can do so many things on that back end.
Yes. So if I put that graphic, there's 5 things I'm doing with this. Are you in the process of it?
Oh, sorry. Here we go. I'll bring it back.
So there's 5 things I'm doing. And basically, you look at the defensive coverage, right? Exactly what they're doing. What are they doing? They're attacking the one side of the field. They're attacking the strong side of the field. So guess where we're going? to the weak, right? And how are we going to do that? Easy. We're going to set it up by, again, running the football. But instead of running it, if we look at here, what we're going to do is this running back is a little bit too high for my liking. I want him to be aligned with the running back. And first thing we're doing is a read option, right? And the reason why is because that is clearly a numbers advantage right then and there. The second thing we're going to do is we might throw in a speed option, right? Let's go back to some old school Jamel Holloway, Oklahoma football, right? Isolate the linebacker and make the pitch. Third thing we're going to do, you see this man-to-man coverage down here? He has outside leverage right now. Guess what we're going? Inside. RPO, read option, run that slant, bam, hit him. then guess what? We're going to hit them deep on the next play, on either play action or regular play. If we look back to the Alabama-Tennessee film of last year, they were able to catch Bama deep on multiple occasions, especially one, I believe, in the fourth quarter, where they just had one-on-one man-to-man coverage, and he absolutely smoked them. How do we do that? We do that by isolating the free safety, and we hesitate him by running these continual play actions. We want to make him come up. We might even throw the running back as a decoy on like a Texas route or something, or maybe just like maybe going outside. Who knows what we want to do? But just to make him hesitate and to make him come up so we can exploit that man-to-man coverage. You want to give us outside leverage? Easy. We're going to hit you on the slant inside. You want to be straight up or you want to give me inside leverage? Bam, I'm going to hit you on the outside. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. I believe that my guys are better than yours, and when the ball's in the air, we're going to make the catch. The only thing that's going to be able to prevent that is by losing the numbers game in terms of offensive to defensive guys. So if you want to go to the strong side, I'm attacking the weak. You want to motion guys to the weak side, I'm attacking the strong. I'm going to make you play a balanced defense, and then I'm going to attack you doing that. You want to overload your side. Guess what? I got the playmakers, especially at the quarterback position, to make you regret that. Whatever you want to do, I'm going the opposite, and that's how I attack this kind of coverage.
So, in case you people were wondering, Brock Vieira is not just a pretty face. We come here to give you things you're probably going to get to me other places. Brock, bravo, sir. Hey, let's sell some people some stuff.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build a cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and
This commercial is brought to you by TrueBrain. Say hello to TrueBrain. We're not magicians. We're not going to turn you into a rocket scientist, unless you're already a rocket scientist. We're not Big Pharma, and our products are custom made to boost mental output. We empower people to do their best thinking.
So we had a very nice slice of the SEC. Now we're going to have a very thick filling portion of Big Ten, like pot roast and potatoes. Michigan obviously is a team that some people think will be a return to the college football playoffs, which means that some people think Ohio State also has that chance, which means that the Big Ten would have two teams. Unlikely. But that can't happen, obviously, if Penn State beats them. As you know, I'm higher on Penn State than most. I think Penn State has a good chance to win this game. What makes me super nervous, of course, is the Sean Clifford factor, because he's capable of being really good at very odd moments and then going back to being Sean Clifford also. But tell me about this game in your opinion, and what do you think will be the biggest determination in the outcome?
Well, if I'm not Sean Clifford, if I am Michigan, I am scared of this Penn State team. Michigan, quite frankly, is not as good as we think they are. When they played Maryland, they got exposed, and that's a really good Maryland team. First of all, shout out to Mike Locksley. Like I love everything that man is doing. He's one of the best recruiters in the country. Well done to him. Maryland is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But at this point, Maryland and Penn State aren't on the same level. Penn State is a lot better, and Sean Clifford, honestly, when the late Sean Bradis, he seems to rise. With like his really worst spots will come against Ohio State, and then also against like random Saturday games, he'll just poop the bucket, right? But then when the lights seem to shine bright, the homeboy just turns up for no discernible reason. And I think that we're gonna have a vintage Sean Clifford performance in this game. Joey Porter Jr. is a monster defensive back. And then when you look at how Michigan is set up offensively, if the defense of the opposing team doesn't bite on their cues, they really got no other way to attack you. They didn't look that great against Indiana. They didn't look good at all against Maryland. And Penn State's better than both these teams. If they can stop Corum early, that's going to force McCarthy to make plays with his arm. It's going to be a long day for the Wolverines. So it's really about Penn State remaining disciplined. And as long as they remain disciplined, they will be able to get the win.
Okay, so that brings us to what I think will be the thing that I think will matter a lot. Joey Porter Jr., of course, is a guy that some people have as their number 2, the number 3, the number 1 corner in the entire draft class. And I'm sure Pete Carroll has pictures of Joey Porter Jr. over his bed, probably. I mean, this is literally, when people say Seattle corner, like this is exactly what you mean. Wait, he's 6'2 and a quarter. He's 197 pounds. He's strong and aggressive, and he has good ball skills. I mean, this is what makes their defense work, is guys like him. Yes. And he's going to have his hands full, obviously. I'm assuming he's going to see a lot of Marvin Harrison Jr. So we get to see the sons of 2 really good football players play after play after play. And if you're a talent evaluator, and we are, tell me what you think comes out of that matchup, Brock.
Oh, yeah. With the Porter versus Harrison?
Yes, sir. Yes, Porter Jr. versus Harrison. So not only 2 sons of.
Are we just talking about that matchup in general, or?
Wait, hold on. Never mind.
So they played Michigan.
I mean, Michigan. Is it Ronnie Bell? Hold on. Is it Ronnie Bell I'm thinking of?
Might be Roman Wilson.
There it is. Yes, there we go. Yeah, never mind. But yes, tell me about the Joey Porter Jr. versus, I guess, Michigan's passing. They're attempting to get deep, because that's the whole point of putting McCarthy out there, right? Is that he's going to give you the chance to throw the ball deep.
Yeah, I expect a really quiet day for the Michigan wide receiver against Joey Porter Jr. I'm sorry, there's no wide receiver on that Michigan offense that you say, oh, that's a dude, that's a first-round pick. Like, there isn't. There's not one that can physically beat Porter. There's not one that you say can outrun him. There's not one that you say can be more shifty than him. It's really just a mismatch all over the place. And quite frankly, whoever's lined up against him, you just got to shut it down for the day. It's bad to say that, but Porter Jr., not only physical gifts. Look who his dad is. My goodness, he is one of the most imposing pass rushers of a generation, Joey Porter. Then you got the man himself, Mr. Jr., who is not only a physical freak of nature, he's incredibly intelligent. He has the frame. He has the explosiveness. He really doesn't give out too many big plays. And even if he does, he always gets his lick back, like people like to say. It's gonna be a masterclass performance for him. And if he does end up in Seattle with Tariq Woolen and Michael Jackson, that is that's a physical DB room, to say the least.
Yes, physical to say the least. I mean, they look like a bunch of, will linebackers, really. I mean, with the shrinkage of the linebackers that you're seeing now. Okay, so the other thing that I think is going to come down to is the interior of each team's lines, offense and defense. Center guard, guard, center guard, and D tackle. I guess the linebackers will get involved in that as well. When you look at each team, the interior of their offensive line, interior of the defensive line, and how they match up, who do you think that gives the distinct advantage to, Brock? Or disadvantage, I guess. You want to look at it that way.
So I would say at this point, the advantage is with the Wolverines when it comes to their offensive line against the Penn State defensive line. But it's a slight advantage, and that advantage can flip if momentum turns. It's really a 50-50 matchup all across the field. It all depends who has momentum at the moment. Whoever is able to fire off the ball faster, they'll win, because there's no way to make it up for any other sides. Of course, Michigan is going to come out with a very run-first offense, but if Penn State can weather the storm, they're going to get a lot of penetration later on as this game continues. It really just depends what's the tone that Michigan sets, and if they can't set the tone, it's going to be a long day for the Wolverines.
Okay, and here's the last thing I want to touch on. People don't talk about tight ends. Well, now they talk about tight ends when they break down matchups. I think that one of these teams, and both teams like the tight end a lot, will have a play that gets them back into the game based on tight ends, right? They'll get back into it. I think one of them will have a tight end, could be a tight end wheel route or just a jump ball situation in the end zone, but a big play will be made by a tight end that will, a team that looks like they're sort of a little bit out of it. I don't know which team it'll be yet, but gets right back into it by maybe they're down a couple of scores and then boom, big play from the tight end. When you look at how the tight ends of each team match up against the guys we covered, the safeties and linebackers and, hybrid players that we talked about, where do you think the advantage is there in your opinion, Brock?
You got to go with the name. You got to go with Schoonmaker. The man can do it all. He can block. He can run proper routes. He can catch the football. He can make athletic, acrobatic plays. If anyone's gonna make a play, I gotta put it on him. But at the same time, Penn State has secretly been in contention for tight end year for a second. Don't laugh at me. But you talk about Iowa having Hawkinson and Fant go in the first round. You talk about the great talents that come out of Notre Dame. But let's not forget that Mike Gesicki came from Penn State. Pat Fryermuth came from Penn State, right? So I got to go with the established name right now, but don't sleep on these Penn State tight ends.
Okay. I like Penn State's tight ends probably more than most. So I think it's a very close to even. This will be an interesting game because I think these teams match up very evenly, except once again, the Sean Clifford effect. I mean, he's terrifying. At one point I was convinced this guy's going to lose his job. He's bad. Then I was like, well, maybe he's not bad. Maybe he's, serviceable. And then it's like, oh, he's amazing. Oh, no, he's Sean Clifford. So we'll see. I've been trying to call for the upset, but I just can't get over the Sean Clifford thing. And if he does it again, because he's done it a bunch of times, if he does it again, where he, plays kind of like, ugh, and then in the last few minutes of the game is a killer and just drags the team back to victory, I will then just, tip my cap and say, you know what, Sean Clifford, you may not be good, but you sure are clutch.
I am calling an upset in this one. I think Penn State beats Michigan.
Yes. Okay.
I know that goes against the grain of everything I normally stand for, but I'm saying this Michigan team is so inconsistent, and Jim Harbaugh is so awful in the clutch that this game's going to come down to a 2-minute drill where he's going to serve a play that's going to be a game-stealing interception. That's the only way that that's the Michigan Wolverine experience under Jim Harbaugh. And I think there's going to be no difference. And James Franklin is going to continue to prove why he got that big extension in the offseason.
Okay. Well, I'm a big Penn State guy, and I told you about how that's been a challenge at times. Okay, so what game would you like to get to next? We have about time for 2 more, probably.
Ooh. How about USC Utah?
How about USC Utah? How about USC Utah? And all the smart money is saying that Utah's going to win this game, and I can't.
Call me dumb because I'm taking the Trojans.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I understand the points they're making, but I feel like they're not willing to admit that Utah isn't quite what they thought it was. But tell me what you see when you watch these two teams.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Utah was good. I thought they were just going to smoke everybody after Florida. I thought you lose in Gainesville, you get stuck at the airport. You live in Utah. There's not a lot going for you at this point. So I thought they were going to fester that anger and smoke everybody. And then they go to the Rose Bowl and get smacked around by DTR and that UCLA offense. Can we really say UCLA's offense is more prolific or better or anything positive more than USC? I don't think so. USC is starting their back at left tackle, I believe. So that's something to keep an eye out for. But their wide receiver room and Travis Dye, and it's too much firepower for Utah to be able to contain. And they don't have the weapons that we thought they had in Cam Redsley and Tavion Thomas to be able to keep up. So I think that it's not going to be a walk in the park. But I think not UCLA. I think USC breaks away late and gets a fairly comfortable victory, maybe around 11 to 14 points.
I love disagreeing with you, but I love agreeing with you even more. I am inclined to just simply rubber stamp. Let's move on. Let's take a quick look at. Let's see. I think Clemson survives. That's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to spend too much time on that one.
I want to put my prediction in right now for Clemson. Clemson loses to Notre Dame.
Oh. Okay. Well, I will file that away. It's on tape. Okay. That is what that will.
I want you to know how much it hurt my soul to say that, because as a good friend Greg Rector,
yeah,
I hate Notre Dame with a passion.
Yes, sir.
But I think they beat Clemson.
Okay. Well, like I said, consider it filed. That is indeed going to be filed away for future reference. Okay, the Big 12, as I mentioned, we talked about the respect that the Big 12 and Pac-12 are still trying to earn. I was big on Oklahoma State last year. I'm big on them this year. I predicted they would win the Big 12 last year, and I'm sticking to it. I predicted they win it again this year. When I look at Oklahoma State, while they don't have – the highs aren't as high for them as some of the other teams we've talked about. The lows aren't as low either. There's nothing I can point to say, oh, they suck at that, right? Oh, that's terrible. They have everything I look at, I see something where it's like, okay, that's solid. That can work. They have a very explosive offense. Now Gundy is 6-4 against them in his career, but 6-4 means, you've got one more win than losses. And obviously they tend to have one more star rating per average player. So you're talking about a 3.5-star program facing a 2.5-star program. So I'd expect them to have at least one more win. The over-under on this baby is 68.5 points. I mean, I'm inclined to lean under, but I will not be shocked at all. But take me through what you think will be the biggest parts of that game, the TCU Oklahoma State game, and what player do you think ends up having the greatest stamp, the greatest impact on the outcome of that game?
Max Duggan when he leads the Horned Frogs to victory. That man is balling. He wasn't even a starter this season. He was the backup, right? And then he comes in against Colorado, starts cooking, and just doesn't stop. They were lucky to escape Kansas because Kansas had multiple opportunities to win. But sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And luck is on the side of the TCU Horned Frogs. They took a lot of flack when they fired Gary Patterson. It was clearly the right move with Sonny Dykes. They're going to upset Oklahoma State. I don't think Oklahoma State is as good as we think they are. I think maybe it's just biased, but I think that as the season progresses, Gundy will fumble 1 or 2 games like he typically does. I think this is one of them. I think this is the game. I think he fumbles Bedlam. I think they make a New Year's Six game with 2 losses. Until Oklahoma State can prove to me that they're able to get over the hump, I can't put the money on them. TCU's been riding high. They've had some very high-profile wins. So they beat some teams we didn't expect them to. Where Oklahoma State hasn't really faced anybody where we thought, oh yeah, that clearly is the better team, and Oklahoma State has overcome those hurdles. So, yeah, gotta stick with TCU on this one. And Max Duggan, I'm riding that to the bank.
I can see why you make that pick, and I can't fully disagree with you. Now, obviously, I can't unsee the 63-17 shellacking from last year where Oklahoma State just went nuts. I don't think they'll do that. This is not TCU is dramatically better this year than they were last year. So this is going to be a great game, is what I believe. This may be amongst all the games we discussed in terms of just pure, this could be a 1-point game either way. I think this could be literally a game where these are two unbeaten teams that are really, really good. TCU's under 100, negative 100 on the money line. Oklahoma State's plus 160 on the money line. TCU's a 4.5-point favorite, according to the Tipico Sportsbook, and some others have them as a 3.5-point favorite. So you're not really picking an upset based on what the bookmakers say. Though I think a lot of the fans would be surprised to hear that. It's going to be a fascinating game. That game is going to be absolutely fascinating. This is the one. Like some of the games I'm going to be like kind of trying to watch a bunch of games at the same time. I may just focus entirely on that game when it comes on, because I just think it's going to deliver. Right? Some of these games, if you tell me some of the games you talk about turn out to be duds, be like, yeah, I could see that. I cannot see any way possible that game turns out to be a dud. I feel like that game is going to 100% have to rock solid end up being a fantastic game. And I just refuse to believe anything else is possible.
I like Mike Gundy. I think he's a really good coach, and maybe now he's finally starting to hit his stride, possibly. And this is when he finally gets over the hump. I can't put money on it yet, but just well done to him and how to run a program. I mean, let's not forget he's the greatest quarterback in the program history. Of course, he did have Barry Sanders as his running back, but in his 4 years as quarterback, he never won Bedlam. Like this dude seems to pull out Bedlam like not every other year, but more times than you would expect for a program of Oklahoma State's stature compared to Big Brother Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, we'll see who's the big brother. I mean, I know you're predicting that OU wins Bedlam, and once again, it's not impossible, but
I think if if Dylan Gabriel is healthy, they'll win Bedlam. If he's not, different story.
Okay, I can accept that. That once again, because it's Bedlam, it'll be close. Like it won't be a blowout, even though I think Oklahoma State's a better team. It's going to be tight just because it's Bedlam. People don't understand just how tight, how brutal, how whatever term you want to use, even when one team is bad and one team isn't, one team is great and one team's not good, how these things are still end up being tight just because of these guys, this is it for some of them, especially for the team that doesn't have something else to play for. Now, not saying that Oklahoma doesn't have anything to play for, but this is clearly not a play in the college football playoffs kind of year. So I'm going to hit a quick couple of, as we call it, sort of under the radar games that people probably aren't talking about. And then I'll let you do the same. And then we'll close this sucker out. So as always, as I've mentioned on many cases, I am a proud graduate of Knoxville State University. And I've always paid close attention to what's going on in the world of Black college football. And obviously with the "you ain't SWAC" controversy, some extra spice has been added to some games on this season. But in this particular week, games upcoming, you got Alcorn versus Southern, which will be on ESPN+. Jackson State versus Bethune-Cookman, which is on ESPN+. Texas Southern, Alcorn State, ESPN+. And then with the game I'm going to sort of focus, pick a term. The game, to me, I guess, the game of the week, I guess is the term I'm looking for. The game that I think is the most intriguing in my own, sort of personal opinion, I guess is the term I'm using, Yeah, because it is my own personal opinion. Generally people look at the SWAC East and the SWAC West and generally think the SWAC West is going to be the more interesting, the more, power packed. And of course, Grambling State's struggling. They're going to play Florida A&M. But like I said, the one I'm going to focus on is Alcorn versus Southern. And as I said, ESPN Plus. So if you got the plus, rock out. They're both 3-2. I think they're both very, very, very evenly matched. I think that some of the things that I would expect or look for, I think it's going to be a fairly low scoring game. I could be disproven. And I don't mean, 10 to 11 or something, but I mean in the 20s. I think, probably 31 points wins it. I think both teams end up in the mid 20s, 24, 27, 23, somewhere in there. I'm going to lean ever so slightly Southern, but I think it's going to be a very close game. I could see Alcorn pulling it out. They're both really well, like I said, well matched. You're going to see the strengths of both teams are going to be tested. I think that you're going to see just some of the things that I'm expecting would include, and it's something you see all the time, which team can avoid making the big mistake, which team can avoid giving up the big play, and which team can avoid, once again, turnover margin. I mean, turnover margin is going to decide most of the games we discussed, quite frankly, and that one's no different. Give me an under the radar game or two before we close this one out.
So I just got one for you because, of course, they're my team. Hawaii played Nevada at home. Hawaii had a really shockingly good performance against San Diego State. They weren't able to pull the game out, unfortunately, due to a last-minute field goal by the Aztecs. But defensively, they look solid. So I'm hoping for a really strong performance from University of Hawaii. Plus, Nevada wide receiver Melky Stovall just hit the transfer portal. Hoping we can bring him to the islands. Timmy Chang was his wide receivers coach when he was at Nevada, but he might go Colorado State. Who knows? I'm hoping he comes to Hawaii, but we'll see. But Nevada as a program, the drop-off from last year to this year is bad. Ken Wilson might not last the season. It is absolutely horrible in Reno right now. And quite frankly, as a UNLV graduate and alumnus, I am very hopeful that we can smoke them in the Cannon this year and bring the Cannon home to its rightful home in Las Vegas and paint it red over that disgusting blue that they have. But Nevada in general is just, it's a mess right now. And I'm really thinking this is a program-defining win for Timmy Chang.
Well, Coach Norvell, sometimes when a coach leaves a program, people are like, whoa, why would he choose to leave? Sometimes coaches know things, right? Well, that money's part of it.
Well, he knew this too.
Yeah, money's part of it too. Yeah, I think Norvell was one of the lowest paid coaches in all of FBS or something. So I think that was part of why he moved on to Colorado State. But I think he also saw the writing on the wall, and he was a really good coach. He managed to paper over some of the flaws at Nevada Reno. Do you have any last thoughts before we give the people what they want, which is more opportunities to buy amazing products? But before that happens, is there anything else you would like to say before we close this one out?
No, just want to say thank you to everyone that's watching so far. This has been a really fun start to the college football season.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, and I would say I have to go back to May 2007. This is the first time I feel like a clear national champion is not visible.
I love it.
I love it when it's unpredictable, especially in a sport where the talent differential is so great from the top to the bottom. It's so fun to see. Like, I remember when Hawaii was 12-0, at Kansas and Missouri were battling for the number 1 seed, and somehow Oklahoma still won the Big 12. Like it was you must watch television every week, and this feels the same. And lastly, who could have expected that JT Daniels was going to be the number 3 Jay Daniels quarterback in college football this season, right? How are Jalen Daniels and Jaden Daniels better than him? I don't know, but I love it. I'm looking forward to another great episode in the theater that is college football.
Yeah. I'm going to mention we're not going to truncate this down to super, super short. We talked about our half-season Heisman, and you mentioned one of those names, Jalen Daniels, of all places, Kansas, is a guy that I think would be a finalist. If Kansas loses 1 or 2 more games this season, but is a 10-2, 9-3, I mean, how do you not bring that guy to New York? We mentioned Max Duggan. I mean, wow. Is there an award for the most improved quarterback in college football? If there isn't, I created one, but I don't think anybody else believes in it. I called it the Yates Crompton Award, named after Jonathan Crompton at Tennessee and TJ Yates at Carolina. Because I watched those guys from their first start to their last start, and dramatic improvement.
Yes. TJ Yates, Houston Texans legend.
Yes. Well, TJ Yates' nickname at Carolina used to be TJ Yikes. And so, yeah, I wish I were joking. But he turned it around. So Max Duggan is a guy. My guy Sean Tucker is a guy I'd have on that list. And
mine is Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
And yes, throw him in there. What the heck? Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You get to go to New York. So that's another thing, right? The Heisman race is wide open as well. I love it, as you said. And with that being said, we're going to draw this amazing episode to an end. But before, you've got to watch these amazing ads.
Pickup is a fan engagement platform that aims to build communities and turn the biggest headlines in sports into free-to-play props while rewarding fans for their hot sports takes. You've likely seen their props on Nuts and Bolts Sports and some of your other favorite online publishers and leagues like USA Today, NASCAR, Flow Sports, and others. Simply make your pick on the Pickup prop and verify your pick by entering your phone number, which you will use to track your picks. Accumulate points and exchange for prizes in their marketplace. Their merch ranges from Fanatics gift cards, cross nets just in time for summer, dugout mugs, and more. Make your picks ahead of the draft now.
All 22 is the future of scouting databases. With over 20,000 players, All 22 allows you to be the GM. All 22, the global scouting network.